We didn't always watch football at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Protect the football. Buffalo Wild Wings. Football the way it should be.
Welcome to the Buffalo Wild Wings Coaches Corner here at the Hoopsville National Invitational Classic. Getting a chance to talk to each of the coaches throughout the tournament, and we are joined now by Gallaudet's head coach Brendan Stern. First year as the men's basketball coach, last year the women's basketball coach, and before that an assistant with the men's program. We are obviously going to be signing with Coach, so forgive the delay. We do have an interpreter to help us out. Coach, first of all, thank you for coming, and welcome to the Hoopsville Classic.
My pleasure.
An interesting opportunity for Gallaudet to play some teams maybe they don't normally get a chance to play. Obviously familiar with Stevenson, but you'll also get a chance to see a team in Franciscan that you may not normally get to.
Right, absolutely. I look forward to playing Stevenson University. I do understand that they have some really great recruits, and I think that it's going to be a great early season test for us to get us ready for the conference.
You have a team that has certainly switched gears. You had a very successful few years. Last year, a number of seniors. You lose some of that talent. You're now kind of, let's say, in a rebuilding stage. What do you expect from the Bison this year?
We will leave some of the leading seniors last year. They were very talented athletes. But as I tell my players now, in the middle of all the difficulty lies opportunity. We do have players that I do believe are ready to step up. Only time will tell how they'll be able to handle the pressures.
You have a game against Stevenson, and then you obviously have the game against Franciscan, but then you have the rest of the season. How does the schedule look in your mind? How successful do you think the team can be?
We do have a difficult schedule this season as we compare to previous seasons. I do believe we have the best players in the Mid-Atlantic region. I do believe by playing the best teams, we will only get better. I am speaking from experience as a player myself. I played at CAC, so we played Catholic University in December, and we will play Mary Washington in December as well. St. Mary's will also be in January. We've got a couple really great games coming up, and these are some of the top players in the CAC and MAC.
Yeah, obviously familiar with the CAC, having been in that conference prior, and you had some tough opponents then, and certainly keeping that mix alive. But even in your conference, which seems to be a free-for-all many years, a lot of different teams seem to rise to the top year in and year out. How do you see yourself fitting into the conference this year?
I don't think anybody can tell. We don't know. There's no crystal ball for us to be able to predict. And from what I do see, there are a lot of top players from last year that are not in the conference this year. So like you said, it's really a free-for-all. I do think that the team will improve a lot this year as the season progresses, and I think that we'll see a lot of surprises and a lot of upsets as well.
One interesting thing people may not be familiar with is the fact that, Gallaudet, full collegiate program, albeit a deaf institution. What is, if you were able to tell people what the experience is like as a deaf student athlete, as a deaf coach, to play other teams that are not like yourselves, what is the dynamic like? What do you guys go in, what's your mentality into to those events, those games, and those arenas?
I think the idea of Gallaudet playing basketball is more exciting for people who are not familiar with the deaf community or Gallaudet University. For Gallaudet students and Gallaudet athletes, we don't wake up in the morning and look in the mirror while we're brushing our teeth and say, I'm deaf.
Yeah.
It's not something that we do. We just think about the same things that other college athletes think about when they get up in the morning. And when we play a basketball game, we're thinking about the same things that basketball players think about. But having said that, I do think one nice thing about playing for Gallaudet University is that we don't only play for ourselves or for our university, but we are playing for the deaf community as well, not only in the United States, but the world. We do have a lot of supporters from the deaf community throughout the world. People look up to us in Europe, South America, and really all over the United States. Deaf people are really looking to Gallaudet as a beacon of hope, if you will. And they really hold Gallaudet in the highest regards. And the players do know that. We do have that responsibility and that obligation to really show the deaf community and show them, represent them well by playing hard and playing smart basketball.
Obviously, you wouldn't know any different, but those who are basketball fans are used to coaches yelling on the sideline, seeing players communicate on the floor vocally. For some, seeing Gallaudet play is very different. The communication clearly is different. How do you, in a matter of a fast game like basketball, communicate with your players? How do the players are able to communicate? Obviously, there's sign language, but there must be other little nuances that you're able to perfect to speed up your communication.
Oh, believe me, I do yell at my players. I stomp my feet. I wave my hands to grab their attention. The players are really great with eye contact. As far as the dead balls go, they'll huddle. They'll look to me for the lead. One thing that is a little bit different that I do at home with my deaf family is we do turn off and on the light switches. We blink them to be able to get somebody's attention. So unfortunately, we can't do that on a basketball court.
A little too tough to do that. Is there also an element of making sure referees understand the nuances and maybe even your opposing team to understand that what a referee might consider from an able hearing person is going too far and maybe beyond a line of decorum is really just your way of being able to communicate with your team or others?
Sometimes I'm relieved that the refs are not able to, say know what we say because I can't get a technical or anything
Sure.
like that, because they can't understand. But on a more serious note, I think that occasionally I will use my assistant coach to utilize being able to speak with the referees if I do see something that needs attention immediately. But most of the time, I do tell my players, don't worry about the refs. We've got other things we can worry about. So
back to you a little bit. We mentioned it at the beginning. Assistant on the men's basketball program. You then shifted to the women's head coaching position last year. Now you're on the men's side. Kind of a different change of the game for you from season to season and season. How has the transition worked for you? Do you feel like you're absolutely really ready for the men's, or are you still kind of shifting between?
like I tell my players now, I did get demoted, if you will. I'm with the men this year. Seriously, though, I think that men have fragile egos. It can be more difficult. When I criticize a player on the men's team, everyone will, depersonalize the, criticism. They'll think to themselves, oh, the coach is just trying to motivate the team, not a big deal, let's just worry about ourselves. But when I was the coach for the women's team, if I criticized the team as a whole, every player would think, he's speaking to me. They felt more personal by any sort of criticism. So I do think that I do miss that. That is one thing that I try to instill in my players on the men's team this year, is to really have them take things personally to put the team above themselves as individuals. So I do think that's one benefit that I did learn from coaching women's basketball last year. And I really do miss my former players on the women's team. But I do know that the new coach this year, who has replaced me, has already and will continue to do a fantastic job. And they're in great hands. The
women's program at Gallaudet, other programs have certainly had storied histories. the men's program has certainly been able to compete, as you mentioned, with the CAC in previous years. But it feels like the men's program is something that many would like to see take that next evolutionary step, like the women's program, even most recently, but of course back in the day of Rhonda Joe Miller and the rest. Is this men's program capable of making that step? Obviously the recruiting is very different, but can the men's program, can it in the long term become one of those that we see in an NCAA tournament, or even make a run in an NCAA tournament like those great women's programs?
Definitely. One of our goals is to make history with men's basketball at Gallaudet. We've never participated in an NCAA tournament before, and I think that it's within our reach. If not this year, then most definitely next year. Like you said, it is going to depend on recruiting. One of the nice things about working at Gallaudet University is that we don't have local recruiting bases. We have local, national, and international based recruiting. So we do have to reach out and find those deaf, hard of hearing players who can use American Sign Language and get them to come to Gallaudet University.
Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we were unable to give you the very end of our chat with Gallaudet head coach Brendan Stern, but I do want to thank him for joining me on the Buffalo Wild Wings Coaches Corner here at the Hoopsville National Invitational Classic.